Hello everyone, welcome back to Old School Gaming. Today we're going to start a new game, a new old game I guess I should say, Champions of Norrath, Realms of Everquest. I've been wanting to record this for a very long time. Those of you old school fans who are familiar with Everquest may not know about this game, or if you have, maybe you've never played it, or maybe you have played it, but it's been years and you don't have a PlayStation 2 anymore or whatnot. So I will be recording an entire playthrough of this game. For those that have never played this game before, I will be doing just a quick showing of how it looks to design a character and the different classes and races that we can pick. So you have a male and female of each. So you've got the barbarian, and they have their own strengths and weaknesses, as you can see on the screen here. I guess for the warrior, the biggest weakness is that they have no magic and their mana does not regenerate. This game plays very much like the Baldur's Gate games for the PlayStation 2. Actually, I think it was made by the same studio, if I'm not mistaken. Oh. The female barbarian is who we are going to do this walkthrough with. I have played this game all the way through over the decades. I guess it's decades now. Yeah, about 2 decades. I've played the Dark Elf and the Barbarian. And this is one of the only games in which I actually play a female character. Most often because I'm a male, I like to play male characters. So here's Wood Elf Ranger. Obviously close quarters are not so great. And you can design them. It's not a great character customization, but it's decent, it works. So High Elf Cleric. When I was in the military and I was playing this game with 4 other people, we would have one of each class, and so this was great to have a healer. It made things a lot easier. You didn't have to rely on health potions very much. So these would be high elves. These are wood elves, or I should say, by the EverQuest names, Feardoll. Man, it keeps hypersensitive joystick. And then you got the Koata doll. Then you got the Iridites. Magic casters. I'm not too big on magic. I like sword and board. That's why whenever I play D&D or most fantasy games, I prefer playing warrior classes. And then obviously you've got the Teardoll, Dark Elves. And it was this class that I first played this game with, and it was kind of interesting. The fact that you're trying to save Norrath and stop Enaruk, considering the Dark Elves were created by Enaruk. But just real quickly, I'll show you the what he said. So you can change the skin tone a bit. Looks like he's got some tattoos or scarring. Yep, there's some tattoos. Hairstyles. Just a few basic choices. You can add beards and goatees and stuff like that. We'll just briefly look at the different customizations of the classes.
Excellent idea.
I kind of like that hairstyle. It displays the ears. That one's kind of nice too. Look at the long ass ponytails. Oh goodness.
I'd be
And the
glad
wood
to.
elves. Interesting character models. They were pretty good for the day. And then I'm not going to worry too much about the barbarians because I will be playing a barbarian for this. So we're going to go back to the main menu. And I'm going to start a new game on the hardest difficulty. It's recommended that you play, if you're going to play champion level, that you have a character that is level 35, which I do. I think I played this last year. And let's see. I think this was my barbarian. Yes, we'll go with this one. Yep, she's level 35, so she makes the cut. So we're going to go ahead and import her. And I like the voice acting for the barbarians. They've got the Nordic accents, which fits because they're a Viking-like race. So what I look to do in this playthrough is not only to play the game, but also to talk about EverQuest lore, the gods, the races, all sorts of things. So if you are a fan of EverQuest, hopefully that'll be entertaining for you. And if you don't know a lot about it but are interested, hopefully that'll be entertaining for you as well. I'm sure there are some of you out there that know a lot more about the lore than I do. There are so many forums online. There were so many books in the game, especially EverQuest 2. So I can't guarantee that 100% of my facts are accurate, but I do research. And obviously I played this game for a number of years. I played EverQuest 1 only for a year and a half because I got deployed to Iraq. And by the time I got back from Iraq, EverQuest 2 had come out. Came out about 6 months, I believe, before WoW did. And so I got back from Iraq about 6 months after this game came out. So right around the time WoW was coming out, I started on EverQuest 2. And obviously because EverQuest 1 and EverQuest 2, the lore kind of diverges at a point. Most of my lore and knowledge comes from EverQuest 2 because I played that game the longest actively. I think I played that game 6-7 years, and then I dabbled, ever since then. I go back every now and then and check it out and stuff. So, but yeah, we'll be talking about the lore of this game, some of the differences of the bosses and the races, and just talk about the lore of EverQuest and EverQuest 2 as we go along and kill stuff, hack and slash. It'll be good fun. All right, now that we've seen the original speech by King Leithcorius that you can only see apparently in a brand new game on the lowest difficulty, we can go ahead and get started with our campaign. We're going to do champion level because I had previously used a character to beat this game, as I said. So we are going to import my barbarian female. And just a real quick note here about this game. So Champions of Norrath was released February 10th, 2004 in North America and a couple months later in Europe. The game takes place prior to an event called the Shattering, which was the shattering of the moon of Luckland, one of two moons that hover around Norrath. That was during the Age of Champions. However, the game creators said that this actually takes place during an age called the Age of Adventure and not the Age of Champions. And that's roughly 500 years before the original EverQuest game. There is a sequel to this game called Champions Return to Arms. We will play through that at some point, probably after I get through this game. Just a note about EverQuest, because there are so many different games. You have EverQuest, you have EverQuest 2, you've got Champions of Norrath, Champions Return to Arms, Lords of EverQuest, and then EverQuest Online Adventures. And technically all of those are canon. There were events going on with the gods, some meddling by Vampire Lord Maon Mistmore, Mortal's invasion of the Plane of Time, all sorts of things. So technically speaking, all of those games are canon in their own way. Some fans choose not to acknowledge certain games like Lords of EverQuest because that seems to contradict other things, but technically speaking you could make the case that all of these games are canon. So with that out of the way, we'll go ahead and get started. So as I said, I chose a barbarian female, and we will get into more about their race and culture and everything later on. Since we're starting off in Kelthen.
Let's get to work, shall we?
Well, all right. I was just letting them know. Geez. Yeah, we'll get into her race and all that stuff later. Since we're in the Wood Elf City, we're going to talk a lot about the Wood Elves.
You will need need supplies and weapons for the coming battle, visit our shopkeeper Nenmar. I have instructed him to provide you with whatever you need for a fair price.
Yeah, save our people, but we're still going to charge you for goods. Thanks, buddy. So the game has 3 different top-down views. For a lot of the combat, I'll do up close like this. But if I'm exploring around, then often I'll keep it at one of these other 2 higher views. Let me bring up the mini-map. Oh, that's not it. Where's my mini-map? There it is. All right, I'll keep it up there in the corner. I am a little bit rusty. I have played this game before, but it's been a while. When you see barrels like this, you're going to want to break those. As a note, you can see I've got 2 swords that are showing electrical abilities. I usually like to have 1 electrical, 1 fire, but I guess I can't remember why I chose 2 electrical for this last well, not playthrough, but the last time I played the game. Not entirely sure why. And my gear is just, let me see if I can go into my menu.
I've no mana left.
Totally hitting the wrong buttons. There we go. Alright, so yeah, here I'm saving some weapons that are in red that I currently can't use in gear as well for when I reach higher levels. But yeah, you can see my gear is it's just a hodgepodge of things. I'm not a big fan. I wish this game was better about being able to coordinate different pieces of armor. There are full sets, but those aren't always easy to get. And you can see that I used one of my abilities here by accident. I have Critical Hit and Ancestral Call, and those will allow me to do a lot more damage, which is good because you're going to be facing a lot of enemies, especially up here in the trees. So these are the 2 that I like to activate and use, but there are other ones that I may get and show you as we go. But yeah, these are my 2 area of effect spells. Well, I mean, I guess they're in an area of effect that you can see those little shining bubbles and lights and stuff like that. So as long as you see those, that means those abilities are active. And as I was saying before, with the warrior, your health will not regenerate. Not health, I'm sorry. Your mana will not regenerate unless you kill enemies or if you use a mana potion. Want to break every barrel and I guess apple container that you can. It's a way to get money.
Halt! The Feydark lift is off limits by order of Leithcorius, Heartwood Master of the Wood Elves. No one is permitted to use the lift until every single goblin and orc is destroyed. No exceptions.
Well, we won't be using well, all will be facing our goblins, so that's good. It's our first enemy of the game. At least it's not rats, as it was in Everquest. The first thing you did was kill rats. Oh, let me go empty my bags. I think that may be a little bit further ahead where I can dump my bags. Speaking of which, I'm not going to be spending a lot of time talking about gear or buying gear on screen because that bogs down the playthroughs. If I come across a piece of gear that is really, really useful, I might bring it up and show it on the screen then, but we're largely going to avoid that. Oop.
So, you're off to slay the raiders, are you? Well, my hat's off to you. I gave up the adventuring life centuries ago to open this shop. Tanari willing, things will get back to normal before too long. You never know what might come in handy during a battle, so it's a good idea to fill your pack.
Tanari is the goddess of growth and nature and the creator of the Wood Elves. And actually the High Elves too. I'll get into that a little bit. Let me just go ahead and sell all of this stuff that I'm not going to need. It's Rangers only. We don't need that. The gear in red I can't use yet, and I'm kind of saving it to when I reach that level, unless I come across something better in the meantime. Oh, let me sell a couple of these potions that I'm not going to need. These are adornments that you can use to add strength or flames to your weapons, or add mana or stamina regen, all sorts of things. Generally, when I play this game, I use 2 swords, as I am with this playthrough. Normally I go for something that'll cause flame and electricity, but in this case I'm using 2 swords with electricity. Let me sell a bunch of these because we will gain that from killing enemies. Alright, we'll go with that. Alright, let's go ahead and bust open these barrels and see if we can get any kind of loot. Well, we did. Hopefully we can get some coins. Alright, so as I play through this game, I will be discussing the lore on a surface level. I won't go super in depth, and obviously if I make a mistake, please feel free to correct me in the comments section. So we have this spire here, so once we leave Calithan we can teleport back here, but we can also use gate scrolls for that as well, which we have in our inventory. So right now we don't need to do anything with that. We have a save point here, so if I die it will revive me right here, but if I close the game, this save point isn't active, so we're just going to go ahead and save our game real quick. Alright, so we are going to be facing off against goblins at the start, kind of like the foot soldiers of Ralosek, the god of war. Goblins were one of the creations of the god of war, along with orcs, giants, ogres. I'm sure there's some other race that I can't remember. We'll talk more about Ralosek later, because he's actually my favorite god in this game. I will be walking around trying to bust open all the barrels that I can find as well to get money. Luckily, Calithan is nowhere near as confusing as it was in EQ1 with all the different platforms, and I got so lost when I went there. In this game it's pretty straightforward. I have special abilities. Oh, let me block, so I'm blocking there. And if you hit the switch weapon, you will back up. So that's one way to handle the situation. And then you can immediately launch into an attack. Get back here. You can immediately launch into an attack. We'll go ahead and scoop up all of this gear. So since we are in Calithan, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the goblins. The goblins as a race did not always exist. As a matter of fact, when I said that Ralosek created the goblins, that is not entirely accurate. The goblins were originally a race of creatures called the, I'm going to butcher this word, Egexfen. And their leader was a creature by the name of Hazeg Exfen. And that was the original race created by Ralosek. And unlike the goblins, they were cunning, they were smart, they studied about the other planes, they studied magic, and they were part of the invasion force. Ralosek decided that he wanted to leave his plane of war and invade a higher plane, the plane of Earth. The other gods basically ganged up against him and forced him back into his own plane, and his army that he sent into combat suffered for it. So the ogres that went into war, they were slaughtered by the thousands, and their empire on Norrath suffered and collapsed as a result. The giants were scattered to the four winds all across Norrath as well, so that diluted their strength, and the race of creatures that I was talking about, the precursors to the goblins, the Egexfen, they were completely annihilated. But from the ashes were created, the goblins were created. 4 different tribes of them were created, and each of them was placed in a separate area of Norrath, a different environment. And each of them were given a crystal shard, and that shard allowed them to instantly know how to live and thrive in their chosen environment. So I guess even though the gods destroyed them, when they were brought back, they at least gave them survival instincts, although they took away their intelligence and goblins became incredibly stupid as a result. So, but at least they got to continue existing in some form. But we will talk more about the Ralosian races later on. Oh, something else that I wanted to mention here, we do have special abilities here that we can use. I use mainly Critical Hit and Ancestral Call. That allows me to do a lot more damage. Makes me kind of a glass cannon since I don't have a shield. But as long as I can kill the enemies before they kill me, that's really what I'm really looking for in this. Oh, and just as an aside, some of the lore says there were 5 goblin clans that were created, not 4, but that's never been definitively proven one way or another. And I don't know what they were talking about the goblins and orcs being enemies. Oh, that guy hits hard. He's got full plate armor. Both of them were Ralosian races. Maybe the orcs were maybe they bullied the goblins for being smaller. I don't know, but that's the first time I've heard that. It might be just in this game. I am not entirely sure. All right. We just have 10 more goblins left. I'm going to... Well, let me go here by the save point. Since we're in Kelethin, let's go ahead and talk just a little bit about this city, since we will not be returning here. It's a one-stage only kind of thing. The Wood Elves did not always live in Kelethin. So, how can I put this in simplest terms? In the original Everquest, there were a couple of different islands, with the largest one being Tenaria, which was named after the goddess Tenar, who created a lot of life on Norrath. And the goblins lived on that island. This island is Fadeworm, and they ended up coming here. What happened was the goddess Tenari had a dispute with another god, Solosek Ro, who is the god of the sun and the flames. And as a result of that dispute, Solosek, he kind of got salty and said, okay, you know what, I'm going to harm your creations. So he raised mountains called the Serpent Spine Mountains. And in that area of Tenaria, that cut off water flow, or I guess rain rather, to the area where the elves lived, which was an area called the Eldar Forest, and they had their capital city there, which was called, again, I apologize if I butcher this, but it was Takish His. So, they fought against it. They tried to keep water. They tried to, pray to their god. They tried to use spells to keep the area lush and green, but eventually they lost that battle, and they had to leave Tenaria, and they sailed across the Ocean of Tears, as they called it, to Fadeworm. Once there, they settled the city of Kelethin, and they also established the city of Felwith. Now, Kelethin, which, this Treetop city kind of reminds you of the Ewok city from Star Wars, was for the general masses, whereas Felwith was for the Wood Elf royalty and their mages and clergy and whatnot. And over time, they would develop into a separate race altogether, the High Elves, or the Coatadal, as they're called. The Wood Elves are known as the Feardal. And there was an event in Everquest 2 called the War of the Fae, in which the Dark Elves, also known as the Teardal, invaded with an army of orcs and tried to raise the city. And that resulted in a war called the War of the Fae. Oh, goblins are all dead. We could travel to the elevator. Fantastic. So as a result of the War of the Fae, the Fae helped out the Wood Elves, and instead of just residing in the city of Kelethin, they migrated to Kelethin, and by the time of Everquest 2, Kelethin was more of a city of the Fae than it was of the Wood Elves. Go ahead and save real quick. All right, now that we've cleared the top level, we can make our way down into the Feydark Forest. which I have very bitter memories about in EQ1, being my Dark Elf warrior, who I will discuss. um, exploring the Feydark Forest and getting absolutely slaughtered by a homicidal unicorn, I think it was, if I'm remembering it correctly. All right, let's go on down. All right, here we are in the Feydark.
It's pretty enough, I suppose, if you like trees.
That's right, this race, the barbarians, they prefer the ice because they come from the frozen north. They were created by the twin gods Erelisi, Mar, and Nathaniel Mar, gods of valor and love. I think we have a cutscene coming up, so we'll talk more about that later.
Aren't you a little overdressed for a stroll through Feydark Forest? And maybe you haven't heard, but we're fighting orcs today.
Your words are wasted on this one, Eodane. It's but another fool who thinks to be a hero. When will Lithcorius stop sending them to us? They don't come prepared, they don't follow orders, and they don't bathe. They're more trouble than they're worth. Mark my words, we'll end up burying this one right next to the others.
With your charm, Havnor, it's little wonder we don't get more recruits from Feydark's champions. You will have to excuse my friend, but he does have a point. If you're here to do battle with the orcs or goblins, you'll need to better equip yourself. Equip with what? We haven't got any extra provisions. The goblins took everything they could lay their hands on. You might as well go home.
The Heartwood Master would not be pleased to hear his warrior welcomed with such words, Coail. This knight has traveled a long way to do battle at my father's request, on behalf of our people. Forgive Coail's words. These have been difficult times for us all. I am Elgawain, lieutenant in the Feydark Battalion, and son of Lithcorius. You are welcome here among us, champion. I see my father chose wisely, indeed. You could not have come at a better time. If you wish to arm yourself with better weapons and armor, then it may be that we can aid each other. Beyond the rock grotto are 2 fallen trees which mark the goblins' cave. In this cave, you will find the spoils the goblins plundered when they sacked our home of Kelethan. In exchange for spilling goblin blood, you may also find other things there which could be of great use to you on your mission.
All right, guys, in traditional boomer fashion, when I was recording the second half of my video because I had to take a break, I had my microphone on mute, so I'm going to put this audio over the clips that I've recorded, and we'll go from there. So we have our marching orders. We need to kill goblins and get their gear, but we're also going to explore the Feydark and gather a bunch of treasure chests. In the Feydark, it's not just goblins we have to worry about. There's also a goblin boss. There are also bears and fire beetles, which I think we're going to come across soon. This portal right here will allow me to travel back to Kelethan, but there are more convenient ways to do so. I have gate scrolls in my inventory, and you can use those directly from your inventory rather than having to come all the way back here to that portal to go to a different location. So it's more convenient. Fire beetles have 2 abilities. They can shoot those flames at you, or they can fly through the air and headbutt you and stun you. I like to move around them in a circle until I can hit them from behind, and that's how I take care of those. So we were talking about a little bit about the barbarians before, I believe. But in case that part of the video didn't get recorded, or got recorded, but in case you didn't hear it because of audio issues, I will just go ahead and say that the barbarian race was created by the twin gods of Erelisi and Nathaniel Mar, who are the gods of valor and love, respectively. Most barbarians follow that path. Some of them have a very strong code of well, most of them have a very strong code of right and wrong and righteousness, which kind of offsets their lack of manners. They're not the people that you would want to bring to a formal dinner party for sure. But because of their strong sense of right and wrong and justice, some of them follow the tribunal, which is another god. It's a neutral god, and they are known as the Six Hammers. They're six cloaked individuals, but most of them follow the Mar twins. So since we're going to be talking a lot about the lore of this game as we go along, I'm going to go ahead and mention the gods from the top down. At the very top of the pantheon, you have a god by the name of the Nameless. Think of the Force from Star Wars, because that's a pretty apt description. The Nameless has no form, has no personality. It is a driving will. It creates things, but it doesn't have a personality like the other gods. Beneath the Nameless, you have the gods of elemental power, and they control the elements like water and air and earth and so on and so forth. And these are gods that are completely beyond the knowledge of the mortals of Norrath. And their planes also, well, like I said, earth, water, fire, and so on. Those are the higher planes of Norrath. When I mentioned Ralosek's invasion of the plane of Earth before, that was Ralos going from his lesser plane of war to the plane of Earth, which is higher. And what I didn't mention is that the plane of Earth is overseen by the Wrath Council. I think they look kind of like halflings, but they're giant in size. And Ralos initially did take the plane of Earth, and he captured the Wrath Council, and he cut off, I believe, at least one of their heads. And that caused the Wrath Mountains. He either cut off one of their heads or all of them. Oh, I almost got killed there. I had to back off and heal up. Got overwhelmed. I'm going to let the guards help me out there. So he either cut off one or all of their heads. I'm forgetting which it is. But regardless, that formed the Wrath Mountains on Tenaria. And I will include a map of the original Everquest lands so you can view these places that I'm talking about if you want to. And the Wrath Council also shed tears of pain and sorrow as well, and that created the lake known as Lake Wrath. And then, obviously, after that, Ralosek was forced back into his plane, and we already talked about what happened to his creations. So some of the other gods of elemental power include Povar, Teremar, Zegani, and Fenin Ro, and Isi. Fenin Ro is arguably the father of Solasek Ro, who we mentioned before, I think. If I didn't already get to that in my recording. I didn't watch the original part. I probably should have done that. And then obviously Teremar has something to do with the Mar twins that created the barbarians. We don't know if he's like a father figure or not. I couldn't find any lore definitively stating that. So moving down from the second tier of gods, you have the lower tier of gods, and these are the ones that interact with the mortals and also influence the mortals. But we're going to go down into our first goblin cave here. I don't think there was a boss here, if I'm remembering correctly. It's just a cave of mobs. So the gods of influence, these are the ones that...
Of all the places I could wish to die, this is certainly not one of them.
Oh, you're not going to die. I've got you. So the gods of influence, as their name suggests, influence mortals and provide their emotions, their desires, and their sentiments. Ralosek is the god of war. Tenare is the goddess of growth and life. Nathaniel Mar, god of valor. Inaruk, the god of hate. We'll be talking a lot about Inaruk because he is the main villain. I guess the ultimate villain would be better, more apt, of this game. So initially when Norrath was created, the god known as Vishen, which is god of the dragons, a massive dragon, came to Norrath and stamped her foot, her claw marks on it, and created the scars of Vishen. She also deposited her broods on the world, so the world was initially inhabited by dragons. Well, the gods didn't like that one bit, so some of them formed an alliance to come to Norrath and seed their own creations on the world, and contest the dragons. Some of this may sound a little bit like the Silmarillion, and there are definitely nods to that in this. So the initial alliance of gods was Tenare, like I said, the goddess of nature, and she had control of the surface realm. She created the elves, she created plants, growth, everything above the surface. Underneath the ground, life was seeded by Brel Sorellis, who was kind of like a massive god dwarf. He created creatures like the gnolls and the dwarves and so forth. And then you had Prexus, the god of the ocean. And so these three seeded life to contest the dragons. Well, the problem is that the evil gods, they saw this and they were jealous and they wanted to have a piece of the pie too. Oh, real quick, I gotta say, you gotta kill these spellcasters first. They will reanimate the dead. They also have those AoE spells. Some of them have poison. These ones right here have ice attacks, and even if they die, as you can see, their attacks continue. So you definitely want to try and kill them first, as I did, just so they don't reanimate the dead and overwhelm you. So the evil gods, Ralos Zek, Inaruk. Inaruk is the god of hate. Kazakh Thul, god of fear, and Bertoxulus, god of disease. They all decided that they wanted to get involved with Norrath too. Ralosek had the thought, well, I couldn't conquer the plane of Earth, that's beyond me, but Norrath is fair game. I can go ahead and seed my creations there and send my armies and take that place over, a new conquest. That'll be great. And Inaruk didn't like that he wasn't included, so out of spite, he took the original Thex bloodline of the elves and corrupted them by torture for thousands of years, maybe hundreds of years, I forget which. And he created the Teardal, or the Dark Elves, as I mentioned, I believe. My Dark Elf warrior in Everquest 1, well, he was a Dark Elf. And because I was a warrior, I had the choice to pick between two gods, Ralosek or Inaruk. I didn't like the idea of worshipping a god of hate. I like villains that have a little bit more substance to them and aren't doing things just because, oh, I'm evil, I want to go kick puppies. You know, I like villains that have a reason for being what they are. So, shatter through the wall there. We're going to go ahead and kill the spellcaster. So anyway, I picked to worship Ralosek, and the more I researched about him, the cooler I thought he was. And he will actually show up in the second version of this game. So you'll get to see him later. So Inaruk created the Dark Elves, and Tanare absolutely hates Inaruk as a result of that because, you know, he corrupted her race. So those are the main three forms of elves. There are half-elves as well. My bags are full. I hold on to gear that is higher level than me so that when I get to that level, I can make use of it. So I'm carrying around a whole bunch of gear that I can't use yet, so I don't have more than 100 pounds of space at this point. It's kind of like, well, it's not kind of, it's exactly like Baldur's Gate. You can have so much weight before you're too full. I will end up teleporting back to the cities at some point, but I make a cut there. I don't record it. I just travel back to Kelethin to unload my bags, but then I think they get full pretty quick again. So we're just exploring the last few areas of this dungeon. If you look at the map, you can see the darkened spots. That means that's areas we haven't really inspected yet. So there's just a few more goblins to mop up. Right about here, I realize that there's still one section. And I think I get that pile of gold that I just missed as well. We need all the money that we can get. Just a few wanderers here. Gonna go ahead and knock these guys out. And these, it's hard to tell if these are goblins or orcs from the character models alone. I think these are all goblins, though. And they are significantly bigger than the goblins from Everquest or Everquest 2 were. For the most part. There were some goblins, the Giggle bringers or whatever, they were gods that had to deal with gambling in Everquest 2. There were some of them that were bigger. I recall, I met some king goblin in Runny. I think he was normal mortal size, but most of the goblins are much, much smaller than, you know, your humans and whatnot. And so these goblins look to be about the same size as my barbarian female. So that's an interesting design choice there. So we've knocked out the first goblin cave, but there are two more. And at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and try and look for that other cave. I think I go and do some selling here in just a minute, and when I get back from selling, I get ambushed by a fire beetle, but I think I'm getting ahead of myself. We explore a little bit further north before I decide to turn back and explore the southern part of the map, trying to look for this goblin cave, because I realize if you go too far north here, you're going to come across the boss, and I didn't want to reach the boss before I explored those other two goblin caves.
I cannot carry anymore.
Getting that chest here. There's chests all over the place. One of the things I didn't mention is the heads-up display there in the corner. The orange bar is your health bar. The blue bar would be your mana bar. However, since I'm a warrior and I don't have mana, I'll just call it my, I guess, stamina bar. I guess that's apt. Oh, we're getting just absolutely overwhelmed by goblins here. I'm going to back up a bit. Going to go ahead and use one of my special abilities to help thin this herd of goblins. And then the green bar in the center is, that's your experience bar that once it's filled, you get to level up again. Oh man, we absolutely shred these guys. Yeah, right about this point, I think I decide to turn back and go sell things and explore other parts of the map. I think I kill these guys first. Oh, actually, yep, there is a archer, I believe, that can shoot explosive arrows, and he is a real pain in the butt. Yep, there he is. You can see him outlined in red. Got to watch out for those guys. They will knock you back. Yeah, I think he almost kills me. Well, not almost, but it does a lot of damage to me, so I just kind of weave around, get my health back, and I'm going to attack from the flank. Immediately go for him first.
I cannot carry anymore.
I always just grab to pick things up, even though I know my bags are full. It's kind of like a reflex. I think this is about the part where I go to save. Yep, I just went back to Kelvin to save, and there's the fire beetle that attacked me before I could record. Now we're going to go ahead and explore to the south. We got a whole bunch of fire beetles to fight, and we don't... Oh, it was a gate scroll. Those are very, very useful, as I mentioned. We don't find the other goblin tunnels here. We just find a whole bunch of fire drakes and some chests and some other goblins that are kind of by themselves. Maybe they're scouting parties, who knows. Yeah, it's kind of fun playing a Nord, not a Nord, a Barbarian, because I didn't play this in Everquest 1. I was on a role-playing server called Feriona V. You could only have one character at the time, so I just had my Dark Elf Warrior and my Worshipper of Ralosex. So in Everquest 1, depending on where you went, you might get attacked because of what race you were or the god that you worshipped. So I wasn't all that popular with the good areas, which is why when I went to the Feydark, no one liked me and I got murdered by that unicorn, as I mentioned before. I'll talk more about Varks and my adventures in Everquest and Everquest 2 later on. I had a whole roleplay story going for that guy. I was such a nerd, or am such a nerd. I think we're about, yep, just a couple more fire beetles. We've pretty much explored this entire part of the Feydark. Again, trying to get around these fire beetles because they'll hit you with their mandibles if you attack them from the front. So I go from the sides or the back. Every once in a while you can one-shot enemies too, and that's really, really fun. Of course, enemies can critical hit you as well and knock you down. So you got to be careful for that. 3 fire beetles, that's not very much fun. Oh, I cut that one in half. That was awesome. I just noticed that. That's neat. I love the music for this game. It's not the original Everquest music. They didn't use any of the original, or sound effects for that matter, like the cackling skeletons that I enjoy, but the music is still pretty nice overall. Just looking for chests. They can be anywhere throughout the forest. I think there's a couple goblins up here. Oh, maybe it's just the chests. Stuff I can't pick up, but there is a gate scroll. I will take that. Absolutely essential. Well, there's that lone goblin scout. Guarding those chests. Maybe that's plunder he took from Kelethan.
I cannot carry anymore.
But yeah, this video is almost over, guys. So if you would please feel free to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I will be playing through this entire game. It really helps out my channel. And if you like this content, if you like Everquest, if you're a big fan or a casual fan, or you just like watching hack and slash games, yeah, feel free to subscribe. That would really help me out. That goblin just dropped a mace that was blue named. That means it's valuable. So even if I can't use it, I want to go sell it. So I stopped the recording here, and I'll see you guys for part 2. Have a great one.